a few of my lines. Prince nicked all my words there, but there you go. We're going to discuss today mental health within the health and safety industry, how it affects us, and how it's affected others. So we've got later on, we're going to be talking to Helena, who works at the Environmental Agency, and she's going to do a presentation on the impact on us as health and safety professionals. There are a few housekeeping rules, not too many, but there are a few. If you've got any questions, please put them into the chat bar and we can pick those up, and we'll pick some of those up at the end of the session. Myself and Brenton will be monitoring that. Make them all clean and make them valid to the session if you can. And if you can keep yourself on mute, and it will be on mute, we hopefully will have a good session today. So thanks everybody for joining. Like I said, Helena's newly on the committee for the Midlands Branch, and said she worked for the Environmental Agency, and she's a health and safety and wellbeing advisor. Will be giving us a presentation later. But first of all, with a major passion in the wellbeing and stress industry, I'd like to introduce our president, James Quinn, who's going to give an emphasis on how it's affected him, the wider profession, and a few other areas. Jimmy, over to you.
Yeah, hi. There's no presentation, folks. I'm just coming along just to talk about, the health and safety in sort of two areas, in terms of mental health in two areas, and one of them being the veterans area, and one of them being in construction. Now, as a senior leader in the army, in terms of being a warrant officer, and doing 24 years, you see a lot of mental health situations and issues, and in construction you see the same. And from a management perspective, it's how we deal with them, and how we look out for them, and how we promote all the different banners that we see about it's good to talk, and it's okay to be not okay, and everything else. But essentially it comes down to being kind, and essentially comes down to looking after each other, and getting people to talk and open up. And just as a bit by word of, by going through the military part, from my side, I'm not a professional and don't know everything about mental health. I read about it every day. I look at it. I understand the seasonal part. I understand people getting up in the dark, going home in the dark. I understand people losing perspective, people working from home, people doing long train journeys, the anxiety. And during this last 18 months, I've done it all. And having suffered from mental health myself in the past on two separate occasions, and on one occasion I was committed for 7 days. Those were mental health issues due to different parts, personal life going back a long time, issues as a youngster, and also issues when I was serving. And I have all these coping strategies now, so I know exactly. It never leaves you. It's like an addiction. I suppose it's not an addiction. I wouldn't like to say that, but basically it's something. The addiction never leaves you, does it? But I think that mental health will always be around. Once you suffer from mental health, I believe that you will know the signs, and you will know when you're starting to struggle. And through this last 18 months, especially working in the construction industry, I used a lot of my coping mechanisms from the past to help me. So when I was getting on that train at 5:30 in the morning, when I was the only person on the train back in May, June last year, that was weird. And then when people started coming back onto the trains, sitting in my seat that I'd had for nearly a year myself, who do you think you are? This is my area. Trying to be kind to people that wanted to sit down. It was really, really weird. So there was the mental health in a positive way, but there was the mental health in the negative way as well. And having those coping mechanisms really, really helped me. Now, the reason why I'm here today is, again, to talk about, from my perspective, and some of the chats and conversations I'm involved in as your president, and also as the chair of council, some of the conversations that I'm involved in at the highest level with the WHO, the ILO, and these other organisations, and we're all of the same. We're all of the same feeling, and it'd be interesting to see what I've seen somebody coming up with the ILM there as well, another great institution. We wonder, you know, do these leadership or these senior leaders, these stakeholders, where they're sitting in terms of this, because, you know, it's the belief of these massive organisations that we're not even seeing the tip of the iceberg yet. And I'm sure a lot of the people on this call, over 50 of you on this call, will have your own perceptions of where mental health is going at the moment. And, you know, even looking at my son, who's finished university, finished with an honours degree, he worked hard for it. He wants to join the army as an officer in November. It got put back a year because of the pandemic. You know, someone who's spent the last 3 years at university has attained his degree with the fact that all he wants to do is go to be an officer in the army, go to Sandhurst, trying to keep that person involved and keeping them continuing to have that determination that they've got at this time is really difficult. And I'm just wondering myself how these young kids that are leaving school now, are going through A-levels and about to go to university, how they're feeling, what their mental health is going to be going forward. And those that can't get any work at the moment, that have done all that stuff and went through that whole couple of years, that for me is again the mental health issue, because that mental health issue just doesn't affect them, it affects the families and has the knock-on effect of dealing with that as well. So not only am I getting up at 5:30 in the morning and doing my journey and having people sitting next to me in my seats that I've had for 18 months, I've also got to look after the mental health of my son and my wife as well. So that's that part from me. In terms of the construction part, for those that are in construction, we do a thing every morning, toolbox talk, and we say, how are you? I'm fine, good. And we leave it. I just wonder how many people, when I go on site now, I always ask them, what did you get up to yesterday? Did you go to the gym last night? I never ask them how they are. I just say, oh, what? And I just have a conversation with them. And so I just wonder how many people are having those conversations rather than just saying, how are you? You know, if I know all of the black hats, there's about 70 of them on my site, and most of them by name. And I can talk to them, and I can then learn the names of the people that they've got in the construction site as well. And they're all suffering in different ways, from not going home to working later, working harder, all the usual parts. But again, some of them are travelling long distances, and some of them have real anxiety still about coming into work in terms of the COVID side. But as we know, construction is really, you know, the stats go up year on year usually in construction for suicides. And it's not about targeting the right people, but there is a certain age group, there is a certain dynamic in terms of those people that are struggling in the construction industry, although everybody will be struggling in their own way. But from my side, looking at the mental health, it's just about conversation and about talking to people. And anybody that knows me always knows that the 3 words I always sign off with in everything I do: be safe, be well, and continue to be kind. And that's what we need to do, especially in the construction side. Now, as I move over to the veteran side, the veteran side for me is something that I'm going to continue doing until I give up my any working life and volunteer life. And I'll give me a minute just to explain why. I've got 26 months left of work, and I'll be 55. Now, at 55, because I have an army pension, my army pension doubles. I'm very lucky. My wife is 27 years army. She has an army pension as well, and that doubles more or less, or goes up by 80%. So before we fall out of bed in the morning, we have a very good income, and we have our pension that we've generated over the last few years as well. 2 boys are grown up, house is here, so everything's good. So it's my intention in 26 months' time, is it 26 months? Yeah, on the 4th of January 2024, to waking up that morning and start volunteering full time. And where's my volunteering going to fall? It's going to fall in veterans. It's going to fall hopefully within the IOSH LinkedIn Armed Forces and Veterans group. And I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life for a good 20 years, if I can, or 15 at least, for the benefit of veterans and mental health. Why? Because we don't do enough. I mean, no, we don't do enough. In terms of, I know there's groups out there for mental health on everything. I understand that 100%. Everybody's suffering in different ways, different groups, they're all out there. I get it. My particular niche here, as a veteran, I suffer from mental health. I see mental health issues within the veteran community, and I want to do everything I can to help that. So that's why I am a big advocate. Of course I am. I'm very passionate about all our members. And that's the reason why I set up a focus group in my year as president and chair of council. I had the opportunity, the gift as chair of council, to have 2 focus groups. One on veterans, and of course it was always going to be one. That's chaired by the marvellous and wonderful Matt Jackson, vice chaired by Simon Donnelly, with an outstanding group of people in that team. And then we have the mental health focus group chaired by the wonderful Keith Hole, vice chaired by Joe Price, another outstanding and prolific set of volunteers in that team as well. So those 2 groups, for the first time ever in a presidential year, the immediate past president is going to continue with those 2 groups and take them into the immediate past presidency year. So the work has started in my presidential year. I started it as a president-elect, continue to oversee it as president, and I'm going to continue to work a lot more closely with it when I go into my next year. And then those 2 groups, I will continue to either work with IOSH, or I will continue to keep looking after the veterans part as well. So, you know, after a couple of years' time, I've got 15 years more hard work to do, from 55 to 70, and it will always be about mental health, and it will always be about veterans. I don't know how much I've helped there in that 15 minutes, Mike, giving my perspective on mental health, having suffered from it, having gone through it, having the coping skills to deal with it, seeing where people are struggling and having the understanding to have a conversation with them. It shouldn't be about, are you all right? Because it's not a great question in my view. It should be about starting a conversation around that person. That's it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, James. Much appreciated. There's no questions in as of yet, but James, James is here, I believe, till the end of the session. So please feel free to put on chat if you've got any questions, and we can pick those up with James later, I believe. Yeah, that's okay.
I'll be here for the duration. Thanks very much, Chair.
I should have said at the start of the meeting, I do apologise for those that have asked me. We do hope that Midlands Branch presentations will get back to the first Thursday of the month, just for those that are concerned with that and it's in their diary. So thank you for that. Right, I'm going to hand you over to one of our committee members, Helena. Like I said before, she works in the Environmental Agency as the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Advisor. She can give a bit more of a rundown about herself, but she's going to give an overview of the effects of mental health. How's the pandemic affected health and safety professionals and mental health? Okay, Helena, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everybody. A big warm welcome from myself and the committee members. Thank you very much for joining today. Yes, rightly, as Mike said, I feel that us as health and safety professionals during the pandemic, it has sort of thrust our industry to the front of everything. You know, we've had to deal with our day jobs normally, as well as everything else the pandemic has brought, and it's certainly a hot topic amongst my colleagues and friends. So I just thought I'd bring it to light, and obviously, yeah, give us some points of discussion. So I will just share my screen. Hopefully this will work. Bear with me. I am using my work laptop because my someone's not with that. Go. Right then, let's just get it to right. So you can see my screen, but I don't think it's gone up to the
Not yet.
No, technical issues already. Just bear with me 1 second. Oh, I knew this would happen. Right, let's start again.
Beauty of technology.
Oh, wow, yeah. I am more of a Teams girl, I must admit, but it's fine. We'll get there. Right.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Does that look all right? I don't think it's on the screen, yes. Has it?
That's fine.
That's
okay,
fine.
Brilliant. All right then. So yeah, apologies for that. Okay. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Like I said, I'm going to be presenting on the topic health and safety for health and safety professionals, and there will be opportunities for questions at the end, so let me know. So first of all, we'll just, I'll give you a little bit of intro about myself. So I've been in the industry for nearly 9 years now. I started off as an administrator for a water company, saw the officers and you know, fell in love with what they were doing and the job role. So thought, right, this is for me. Did my IOSH and my level 5 diploma. I've worked in a variety of industries from engineering, automotive. I also taught BTEC health and safety in the classroom for a little bit. So I think I've got some varied experience, but as we know, there's always a lot to learn with health and safety. There's no way you can ever get to the point where you know it all. In my current job role at the agency, I do act as a mental health champion, again, which is why I felt this subject would be appropriate and I could maybe offer some good advice on it. I've been with the Midlands Committee since May 2021. I act as the Member Development Officer, but that is still sort of in process at the moment. But I am available on LinkedIn if anybody wants any questions or to catch up after this meeting, that's no problem at all. And then just a little fun fact about myself, in my spare time I teach core fitness, which brings me on to a good point about mental health. Exercise is something that I found really, really useful during this pandemic, but we'll talk about coping strategies and things later on. But like I say, if anybody wants to get in touch, you can find LinkedIn. Okay, so I thought I'd just start off with some general facts and statistics about mental health. I understand there's a lot out there at the moment, and you know, you do hear a lot about this. But this was drawn from the HSC website. So just to put it into perspective, really, 1 in 4 people experience mental health issues every year. That is quite a shocking statistic, really. And you think about how many people are possibly working in health and safety at the moment. That really puts into perspective, you know, there is an absolute chance that some of us are suffering out there. And I feel that maybe because of the industry that we're in and the job that we do, we don't always want to voice that we're struggling because we're meant to be, you know, the champions in this sort of area. So I do feel as an industry, we don't feel as confident to speak out as maybe other people, but I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know what anybody else would think. In any given time, 1 in 6 working age adults have symptoms associated with mental ill health. I know the stigma isn't what it used to be, but there is a wide range of mental health issues now, just to, you know, small anxiety problems, all the way down to sort of, you know, more serious things like bipolar and things. I think people have the view that, you know, if you're not struggling to get out of bed and that you're not in tears all day, then it's not really a problem, but it is. And, you know, small issues can develop into very serious big ones. So it's important to take check of your own mental health. I won't touch on all of these, you can see them on the screen, but just for working days lost and to sort of put it into that perspective. So mental ill health is responsible for 72 million working days, costing 34.9 billion each year. You know, those figures are significant, and it could be prevented if people spoke out a little bit more and felt a little bit more confident about voicing how they were feeling. Also, 70 to 75% of people with diagnosable mental illness receive no treatment at all, which is very shocking and sad, I think. So just generally, that puts it into perspective. And then if we move on to slide 4, these are more workplace related figures. So again, it has repeated some of the numbers there, but 44% of the percentage of work-related stress, depression or anxiety are caused by workload. Now I know that's a little bit of an old figure, I do apologise, I couldn't find anything more up to date, but if you imagine that's how it was in 2018, you know, before COVID hit us, that number is going to be significantly bigger, isn't it? So it's not only costing, you know, businesses money on a whole, it's also costing health and safety professionals our mental well-being, which, you know, doing a job shouldn't happen. So that's a very important point to put across, I think.
Sorry to interject, Elena.
No, carry on.
Your slides are not moving, Elena. We're still on the first slide.
Oh, I do apologise. Right, okay. We did practice this before and it worked, didn't it? I don't know what's happened. Let me just bear with me one sec. Let's try this again. Bear with me, I do apologise. All right.
It's okay on Zoom because you can't get any barracking, so you're all right.
Like I say, we met up beforehand, didn't we? And I just pressed the button and it all worked fine. And I just don't know what's happened now, but let's see if we can get this going again. See, technical issues are another thing that adds to your mental health
That's
problems.
it, yeah. It's all stressful.
Okay, so we got to. Right, I'm going to pop this on there. Right. Let's see. How does that look?
I can just see you at the moment.
Oh.
Which is
so
fine.
Sorry about this. Right.
Okay.
It's not sharing to like my
that is Helena. We've got a mental health with a leaf on it.
fabulous, right? Let's just see. There we go. Brilliant. Right, that's what we wanted in the first instance, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay. Well, the presentation will be available if you need to, flick back to those slides at any point. But the stats are very general anyway. Okay. So yeah, the next point I just wanted to make, was some general. These are just, I suppose, opinions that I've drawn from conversations with colleagues and friends and things. So have a think if you agree or not. But I definitely think that the COVID pandemic has put more pressure on professionals as a whole. As I said, the pandemic hit, we have still got our day jobs to do, all of those tasks and things to meet. But there's also the added workload now of, building risk assessments, make sure that the COVID controls are in place. There's also the impact it's had on learning and qualifications. I was chatting to one of my friends the other day, and she voiced, a lot of the IOSH qualifications have been made open book now as a result of people not being able to be in centre. I know there is some feeling, whether you agree or not, I'm not sure, that it maybe has watered down the qualifications a bit because people can sit at home looking at textbooks, whereas I know when I did my IOSH, it was very, exam intense. I had to memorise forklifts and biohazard sort of things that I wouldn't come into contact normally with my job. So but however you feel that might have affected it, that is one thing that's come out of it. There are some positives though as well. I've noticed, the job market has absolutely soared. It's really not difficult now to find work in health and safety. But there are added extras, like, DSE. I know when I'd been at the agency for 2 months when the pandemic originally hit, we are a 10,000 strong business. So I was literally trying to find my way, in this massive corporation, sat at home in my office and having meetings. The networking side of it has been very effective because we're not in meetings together and we're not in centres together, actually sitting face to face. As we've proven, the technical issues we've had to get our heads around and virtual meetings rather than face to face has also had an impact on us. There is increased stress, and like I said, the health and safety industry has been pushed to the forefront of everything. So people are calling on you for things that maybe they wouldn't have before. You feel under extra pressure, I suppose, and more liability to get things right. And there are subjects that you might not have had to sort of specialise in before. I know a few of my friends have managed to set up on their own quite successfully as a result of COVID. There are some accredited infection control certificates out there now you can do to prove, your competency in COVID management and things. So, and obviously all the industry changes and the alterations to regulations that have come across. And just how fast changing it has become, I think. The HSE guidance is changing every week. I know most recently they've recommended, ventilation is another way to make sure that COVID isn't spreading in the offices. So that's back to just your risk assessment again. It really has put a lot of pressure on us. I don't know if you'd agree, but that's certainly how I feel about it. There is a document, the HSE management standards, which I've just sort of mentioned at the bottom there, which deals with a lot of these issues, gives you sort of coping mechanisms for them. So check that out if you want some more information, definitely. So next, I'm just going to talk about some testimonies that I've had from branch members. These are anonymous for obvious reasons, but it was just to get a feel, for how other people are feeling about it. So one member said, for me, balancing work, family life, volunteering commitments, etc., from a home working perspective has been challenging. However, at the same time, to be working from home and have the flexibility with my work to be a part of key moments in family life is a key positive for my mental health. So as they've voiced very correctly there have been some positives that have come out of it. I know some people, they really like working from home, they like being in their own environment and being, 2 minutes from their own kettle in the kitchen. But it has worked the other way for a lot of people. It's been quite isolating. A lot of people, their pure social interaction throughout the day has been at work, chatting to people over the coffee machine, or those quick 2-minute hellos that you have while you're making the tea in the morning. And especially for people that haven't got any family, maybe live by themselves, that really has had an impact on them. So it's had positives and negatives for everybody. Another member said, I found the added pressure in workload overwhelming at first, along with the anxiety the pandemic brought in itself. Another thing that I know that I've found is that within our industry, a lot of people have managed to carry on working from home and, maybe felt a bit hard done to at the time, because a lot of people are at home with their families, we've had to carry on working because our job role is so key to everything opening back up and, the industry getting back to where it needs to be. So, people have felt a little bit hard done to, I think, over that. The final testimony that we've had, so there is no doubt that everyone has been affected by the pandemic in one way or another. And one of the biggest challenges is the effect mental health issues have had in all professions. Personally, I had to get used to a completely new way of working, from being a people person with strong relationship building skills. I had to get used to using new technologies, interacting with people, stakeholders, and friends. This had an adverse effect on my mental well-being, and I suffered a loss of confidence as I tried to get to grips with the new virtual world. It had crept up on me unnoticed. It was only when I started sharing my experiences with a group of people from my local church that my mental well-being started to improve. Knowing that others were experiencing similar feelings encouraged me. And I will just pause there, because that is something that I found very effective during my day job. Connecting with people, even if it's a telephone call, video call, that is absolutely one proven way to lift your mental health. Share, be open with people, talk to people about the way you're feeling. It really isn't, an issue anymore. There's not the stigma that there was around it. And if you can address the way that you're feeling early on, it's probable that, it won't ever develop into anything more severe. So always be open and talk. It's very important. So to finish off, taking time away from the desk or laptop, very important. Taking downtime for relaxation and walks, gardening and reconnecting with the nature have all helped in improving my state of mind and therefore my mental well-being. Again, an extremely valid point. We will move on to this in a little bit, but being outside, getting outdoors, just switching your brain off from the stress basically for 5-10 minutes, it really makes a difference. But we will discuss some coping strategies in a couple of slides. Okay, so next I've just got a little quiz just to break my voice up a little bit. I did get this directly from the St John's Ambulance website. I can't take credit for this because I didn't have time to put anything together, unfortunately. But so what will happen is I'll read the questions out and the possible answers. I'll give you a minute to think about it and then I'll tell you the answer. Okay, so see how you do. Question 1. What is the following statement describing? A state of well-being in which every individual realises their own potential, can cope with the normal stress of life and work productively. So would you think that is happiness, positive mental health, or fulfilment? I'll give you say 10 seconds to have a think. So happiness, positive mental health, or fulfilment. Okay, and the answer is fulfilment. My tick is a little bit high, but I promise you that is fulfilment. Right. Question 2. A study led by St John's Ambulance revealed that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative impact on mental health. How many people felt that their mental health got worse during the COVID-19 pandemic? So do we think it's 2 in 5, 1 in 10, or 1 in 3?
1 in 3.
So 2 in 5, 1 in 10, or 1 in 3. No surprises, 2 in 5. So again, you know, based on the figures that I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, that sort of, you know, overlaps onto the back of it to show, you know, the impact that it's had. So question 3, something is the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or other types of demand based on them. Now, I think this one may be a bit of a trick question because they all are sort of right answers, but there is one sort of definition that stands out for that. So anxiety, fear, or stress. And the answer is stress. No surprises there. Okay, question 4. Our recent survey found that a certain percentage have considered leaving their job because of mental health and wellbeing issues. So do we think it's 25%, 40%, or 15%? And, you know, in my opinion, that must have to be very drastic, you know, to consider leaving work as a result. So the answer for that one is 40%. So obviously, you know, that's workplaces as a whole, but again, if we factor that into, you know, our industry and how many people work in it, there is probably going to be a significant figure there. Question 5, presenteeism can be costly for employers. Do you know what this means? So is it regularly staying away from work with no good reason? Loss in productivity when workers function at a lesser capacity? Or finally, when employees refuse to discuss issues? So presenteeism, what do we think that means? And I will tell you the answer is loss in productivity when workers function at a lesser capacity. And I know from experience, you know, if you are feeling down or stressed or a little bit, your mental health being affected, your motivation is definitely affected as well. It really does have a knock-on effect. It's very hard to, you know, keep going and perform when you're really not feeling very well. So it's important again to address these problems if you are having any. So question 6, COVID-19 has changed how and where we work. How many home workers were very concerned about their colleagues' mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic? And I know certainly within my business that this was very common. So 1 in 8, 1 in 10, or 1 in 4. And the answer is 1 in 4. So again, very surprising statistics, I think. So final lot now. Question 7, which mental illness is defined as a mood disorder causing mood to swing from an extreme high excuse me, to an extreme low? So is it bipolar, depression, or mood swings? And the answer is bipolar. And as I mentioned before, bipolar obviously is a serious problem, but it can do, slight depression can develop into bipolar and anxiety and things. So again, it's important to make sure that you get help if you need it. So finally, what percentage of employees felt their employer needed to do more to look after their employees' mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic? We think it's 48%, 64%, or 32%. So not surprisingly, or very shockingly, however you feel, 48%. So, you know, that's nearly half. So hopefully, you know, this again reinforces that there is a problem out there. And, you know, it is an issue that needs to be addressed amongst us health and safety professionals. Okay, so just moving on then, a little bit about IOSH. What have we been doing? Some of you may be aware of this. Obviously, we have been shining the spotlight on it and doing as much as we can. There was a round table discussion held to discuss mental health first aid. Mental health first aid is, again, a hot topic at the moment, and I know that a lot of businesses are sort of recruiting them as standard now. One of the things that you can think about is what support you've got available at your work. It's worth looking at if you have any sort of employee support packages, things like that, because businesses are becoming more aware of it. And, you know, it is going to become regulatory, isn't it, eventually, that these are in place. So, you know, there might be support out there that you're not aware of. Talk to your managers, talk to your colleagues, and see if there's anything that you could utilise at work if you're feeling off at all. There's also obviously a range of technical guidance on the IOSH website. Is designed to support and inform members and motivate, stakeholders and professionals as a whole. And I did forget to mention the video is online for the roundtable discussion if anybody wants to explore that further. Of course, there are a range of courses available to help address the mental health issue. Again, the IOSH website will signpost you to anything that might suit you. But the Managing Occupational Health and Wellbeing, I've heard good things about, and I know people that have undertaken it, and it's really benefited their business. So just always remember, if you're ever stuck, IOSH have got a range of things that are there to help and support you and your business. There was also a white paper produced just with guidance on the role of line managers in promoting positive mental health. And there is a world of information, on Google and the internet if you want to put any initiatives in place at your business or anything like that. There is a lot of support out there. You've just got to know where to look for it, as I say. But keep your eye on the IOSH website and the pages coming through, because it's always developing and there'll always be new bits out there for us to work with. Okay, so this slide, I was just going to talk about some ways, some coping mechanisms and ways that we can increase our positive mental health, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. This icon that you can see here is quite a well-known one out there. It's the one that we use at the agency as well. And it's just got 5 sort of notions that if you can try and put these into your daily life, not just with work, just in general, try and tick off one of these boxes or all of them every single day, you will notice a big improvement in your well-being and your mental health. So connecting, as I briefly mentioned before, talking to people is it's food for the soul. It really is. Getting things off your chest and, voicing the way that you feel, having a really good cry if you need to, because, there's no shame in that. I actually had a baby on the 9th of April, so I'm up on maternity, back at work in 2 weeks. It's gone absolutely flown by. But, having the added pressure of being at home as a first-time mum with a little baby, my husband and I don't have much of a support network, unfortunately, so it has been tough on occasions. The way that I've got around that is speaking to my friends and speaking to my family members, voicing how I am and admitting that I'm struggling. Asking for help is one of the biggest strengths that anybody can ever put to anybody. It's not a weakness, it is a strength, and we've all got to be there and look after each other, so that's important. Also being active, if you can get out, even if it's for a walk for 5-10 minutes a day, out in nature or something like that, that really will make a difference. I know, and my friend just sits in his garden for 5 minutes with a cup of tea when he's feeling a bit down, and that really goes a long way to helping him. Making sure you always give, so be kind, do things for people, always help where you can. Helping other humans really makes you feel good. It really does, even if it's a small, I don't know, making a meal for your next door neighbour, something like that. Always try and put kindness into it for you. Learning is one absolute, I know that it's kept me sane, really. It's really good for your brain to learn new things. Positive mental health is based on you joining up neurons in your brain, basically. The more neurons you can join up in your brain, the better your well-being will be. And learning new things, even if it's reading a book you haven't before, reading IOSH magazine, I read that religiously every month because it not only keeps me up to date, but it's keeping my brain active. Even if it's, I don't know, playing games with your children, anything you can do that's a new experience and something different from the norm. Do an IOSH course, it's always one way to keep your learning going. Any way that you can feed your brain with new information and keep it active, that really will make a difference. And then finally, just take notice. I think as human beings, we're just very programmed to always be thinking ahead and worrying about what's going on in the future and, making sure that everything's in place for years to come. Whereas you tend to miss out on the now and the everyday. So, even if it's just for 2 minutes a day, just stop what you're doing, take a deep breath and just look around you, think of all the things in your life that you appreciate that you can't buy with money, for example, your family, your loved ones. Focus on the positives and try and practice positive thinking, because it really will make a difference. And I suppose finally, just always be open with everybody. Like I've said, make sure that, you know, you're not struggling by yourself. Reach out to people if you need to, because it really does make a difference. There is a lot of guidance on this this model as well on the internet, and there are initiatives that you can do in your business. You know, you can have like open days and activities and things that you can do with your teams at work and things. So have a look, because there is a lot of good resources out there. So just before we finish, I just thought I'd provide some you know, helplines and support. Again, there's a world of information on Google, but these are some of the more common ones I thought people might be able to draw on. So the Samaritans are a very well-known one. They're always available and it's confidential, so you know, nothing will ever come back from it. Sane Line is another one. This is an out-of-hours mental health helpline. That is a good one to contact if you're feeling, you know, if you've got any issues. But again, I would say check if your company has any employee assistance programs in place as well, because I find mine really helpful with work. And just talk to your friends and your family and your colleagues as well. We're all in this together, so you know, we've got to stick together and do what we can. So that was it from me, really. Just a final note. So obviously, you know, just encourage everybody to keep doing what you're doing. You know, health and safety is very, very important. Well, it always has been, but we are at the forefront of everything now. And I think this gives us, you know, an extra opportunity to really put a stamp on our work and make a difference. So yeah, that is all from me, but just remember to keep calm so far as is reasonably practical. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Helena. I think that was very informative. I know there's a few that found it so. Some nice comments there, and I think Andrew's perhaps summed one thing up for some people, that he says whilst he's not felt stressful, there's been lots of learning experiences. I think perhaps most of us can perhaps think of different experiences or changes, perhaps some of us that don't perhaps get as stressed as others, but the different experiences and the changes we've had over the 12 months and how we react to those. Not too many questions. Paul was asking a question from the panel. I'm going to throw this one out to you, Jimmy, if that's okay. What will be the impact of ISO 45003 in the short or medium term for both employers and employees? Will this be sufficient to bring about the change in attitudes and support the provision as is required? That's from Paul.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, as we all know, it's the standard on the psychological health, isn't it? Impact, and you know, I can't really answer that quite. I mean, what is the short and medium term of that? I can't really answer that. What I think what we're doing now, what the way I would answer it is that a lot of the things that we are doing now, well, especially in my company, is that we're talking about 45,003 and how that sits alongside 45,001, and the two of them will work together. But I believe that this standard, most companies should be doing this standard or better. I mean, I don't know many companies that don't have, you know, mental health first aiders. They don't have talks. They don't have coffee mornings. They don't have get-togethers. They don't talk about it. They don't have lots of things going on in terms of talks, webinars, bringing people together, campaigns. And I believe that the ISO standard, it would be good to bring Paul into the conversation, is because, you know, the standard tells us what we should be doing. But for me, in my company, for instance, Multiplex, we're already doing a lot of it as well. So it'd be interesting to see what Paul's uptake on it. But in the short and medium term, we should be doing it. We are doing it. And if we're not doing it, I don't really believe that we should be looking at the ISO 45003 to tell us what to do, because everything that we're doing is all about what the standard is, if that makes any sense, Paul. That's a Jimmy Quinn one, by the way. That's not a president of IOSH, chair of council reply. That's Jimmy Quinn's reply.